Welcome back to La Pausa, our pints and punditry podcast here at the Pitchside Pub. This is episode 5, coming to you on Monday, February 5th, 2024, coming off a great weekend of European football action. You know, every weekend's great at this point. There's so many storylines. There's so many just, awesome games going on. Just finished a transfer window. We got coaches on the cusp. We got players on the move. I mean, there's no shortage of storylines, which is exactly why I started this podcast, because there's just so many things to talk about. Can't possibly make videos about all of them, but I want to talk about these things. It's just so many great storylines, so much drama, some self-inflicted, some really stupid. We're going to get to you, Jamie Carragher. But before we do, if you don't already follow the podcast on Spotify, go ahead and follow us on there. If you watch the video version on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. If you don't already, get in the comments section. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And of course, you can always reach out and get the conversation going on Twitter at Pitchside Pub. All right, so we got a lot of news from over the weekend. And, on these podcasts, I don't get into breaking down every game and things like that. There's a different time and place for that. I really like to talk about the big stories that came up. And, ironically, one of the biggest stories of the weekend was a transfer story immediately after the transfer window had passed. And the reason is because it couldn't really be announced until after the transfer window has passed. It's a very unique situation that Kylian Mbappe has going on at PSG. And the rumor, in case you've been living under a rock or are not actually a football fan, is that he is going to be going to Real Madrid this summer. Now, nothing's official, and this is one of those things that it's like it feels like news, and yet it feels like doesn't feel like it is at all, because we've been hearing about this for so long. We've been hearing the rumors of Mbappe to Real Madrid so long that it has felt inevitable for some time. And we thought it was going to happen last summer, then it didn't. He re-ups for another year, and I guess there was a clause in his contract that they couldn't openly discuss this until after the transfer window had passed. And so it passed, and immediately the reports come out that it is all but a done deal. Now, we've been here before. We thought this was happening last summer. So you never know. Till something's signed, you never know. But this report made it seem like it was more of a done deal than it's been in the past. So do with it what you will, but it does seem inevitable that at some point Kylian Mbappe will leave PSG and he will go to Real Madrid. Now, there are so many different angles to look at this from. First of all, Real Madrid's going to be incredible. The what they're putting together there with Vinicius Jr. and Jude Bellingham, and if they add Mbappe and all these talented players, I mean, they're really a powerhouse on the European stage, and this is only going to make them stronger. There are a lot of dominoes that can fall from this. For example, Real Madrid has been constantly linked with Erling Haaland. They were linked with him when he was, deciding where to go after Borussia Dortmund, and he ended up obviously at Manchester City, but that has not stopped the rumors. Now, if you heard Pep Guardiola's press conference from earlier in the week when he was asked about these rumors, he basically laughed at the Spanish media, and rightly so, because the Spanish media just creates rumors that they want to be true to either stir up the pot or to try and have some influence in the market. And it's not very good journalistic integrity, but nevertheless, that has never stopped them. I'm sure Real Madrid has kept him in their back pocket, in back of mind since they failed to get him a couple years ago, and would love to have him. Now, without Jude Bellingham, or with Jude Bellingham, you have to wonder about the finances and all that stuff. But now they're going after Kylian Mbappe, so clearly the finances are fine. But you do have to wonder now, does this take them out of the Erling Haaland running for good, or at least for a while, to whatever extent there was validity there. And I don't know what it is, but we constantly heard that link, and you wonder if Haaland would eventually get, bored at Manchester City and want a new challenge, and Real Madrid, the glory that comes with Real Madrid and the legacy of what playing for Real Madrid means and the superstars that have played there in the past is basically the one thing that Manchester City cannot offer. So you did have to wonder if that was eventually going to entice him, even though he has constantly said all the right things. But does adding Kylian Mbappe along with Bellingham, along with Vinicius Jr., and all the other stars that they have, Does that take them out of the Højlund sweepstakes? Would he go to a place where he's not going to be the penalty kick taker and he's not going to be the primary focus? I don't have the answers to these questions, but these are the first things I think of, which is what are all the dominoes that are going to fall because of a move like this? And I think Erling Haaland going to Real Madrid, which has constantly been rumored, has to be one that I guess we should stop hearing about it now. I'll bet we don't, but when you continue to hear about it, I guess my point is, take it with a massive grain of salt, because there's no way he's going to go. First of all, would they even have the money to add him on top of all these other guys? And then secondly, because, La Liga is so strict with their FFP rules. And then secondly, does he want to go where he's going to be surrounded by other superstars? And I know that's ironic saying that about Manchester City, but Manchester City's not actually full of superstars. They're full of very good stars and Kevin De Bruyne. But the offensive attack is when he's healthy, it's Erling Haaland, and then it's his supporting cast. And that is very clear. That has been made very clear by Pep and by Haaland himself. And so he really is the focal point. Even Kevin De Bruyne on the team, it's his job to set Haaland up. And that's very clear, and everybody's okay with that. So I would be surprised if he ends up there after all this. And I think that may be one domino that we just, we have to stop taking those rumors seriously if we were at all. The other domino is, the main domino is, PSG is going to try and make a move, right? They're going to try and do something. They need talent. They need stars. They got to keep winning Ligue 1. So they're going to be major players in the sweepstakes for some of these bigger names, and I'll get to that in a minute. But if they're going to lose Kylian Mbappe, one, they're going to have money to spend. We know they have money. Now it's not being spent on any of the stars that they've had over the past couple of years. This opens up the checkbook. So they're going to be big players in the market moving forward. And I guess that's the big question I have moving forward, is what does a move like this mean, not just for PSG, but what does it mean for French football and Ligue 1 as a whole? Kylian Mbappe's departure from PSG is a death sentence for Ligue 1's run as one of Europe's top leagues. France has already been lagging behind the other top four leagues, England, Spain, Italy, Germany, in UEFA's country coefficients, with the Netherlands and Portugal closing in. PSG's back-to-back round of 16 exits in the Champions League, coupled with playing their regular season games in an uncompetitive league that they've won 6 of the past 7 seasons, have really taken the shine off of them as a viable destination for their star players. Their experiment of pairing Mbappe with Lionel Messi and Neymar was a relative failure, likely souring other stars from wanting to join Mbappe, and with the French superstar now likely to depart, are other stars going to have any interest in PSG as a new home? The wage levels PSG can offer players are always going to make them a possible destination for a star on the move. But the lack of competition that Ligue 1 can offer, coupled with a longer road to European glory, is going to turn off a lot of players. And if PSG can't recruit new stars to Paris, the decline of French domestic football will continue until they are passed by other leagues on the rise. I have to ask the question, are players like Rafael Leao or Victor Osimhen going to want to go to PSG? You never know who's going to take the money, and PSG will open up the checkbook and back up the Brinks truck and, pick your analogy. They're going to pay, and somebody will take them up on that. Is that the player you want? The one that's willing to go to a lesser, not a lesser club, but a lesser competition just for the money? Well, maybe, because, if Victor Osimhen goes to France, he's going to dominate Ligue 1, and PSG will probably win again. And yes, that's a step down from Kylian Mbappe, but they'll be able to spend some money elsewhere, and they'll be just fine. But are they going to be able to continue to recruit the top players in Europe if the whole league is in decline? And the league is in decline. It's not as competitive as even the Bundesliga. It's not as competitive as Serie A or La Liga. The level of competition is lower. PSG continues to go out and win the league, but they're not advancing in the Champions League. It's not as deep of a league. It's becoming a developmental league with lots of young talent. It's not. I don't want to equate this to a decline in French football, like French players and the French national team, which is as strong as ever. But the French domestic league, they're not staying in France. They're not staying in France to play. And Mbappe was the poster child of the French hero of the French national team, and he's playing in Paris and all this stuff. And it's not good enough for him anymore. And that's telling. That's really telling. And so he's going to go find his level of competition elsewhere. Not that La Liga is constantly trotting out great competition. The lower levels of La Liga can be a little bit weak as well, but it's deeper than France. It's deeper than Ligue 1. So they've got a problem on their hands. It probably starts with television contracts. It's the hardest league to watch here domestically in the United States, where there's a lot of potential revenue growth for European leagues. It's not the most popular league in other European countries. And so they've got a real problem on their hands. And they are, if he leaves and they can't replace Mbappe with legitimate stars, and if they can't give PSG, if some other team and the league can't give PSG some level of competition in Ligue 1, they are going to get passed by the Netherlands and Portugal at the very least on the pecking order of competitive leagues throughout Europe. And that would be a shame, because French football is so dynamic, and the French players are, and it's really a shame that more of them aren't sticking around in France. But if the money's not there, then they're not going to do it. It all goes hand in hand. The teams have to have the money to keep the star players around. They have to have the star players to raise the potential of the league, to create a better competition, to then attract more star players. So at some point, the money has to be the starter there, and then they can start keeping some of their players around and not losing all of them to England and to Spain and everywhere else. So bigger picture problems for France, and just one of the many dominoes to fall if this does in fact go through. So hey, we're looking like Mbappe to Real Madrid. Everything remains to be seen, but this one feels like it is really happening. You know what else is happening? Rasmus Højlund is starting to score for Manchester United. United, and it makes me happy. It makes me happy, even though I'm a Manchester City fan. You see, I've got the office, the setup here starting to get decorated a little bit. But I want Rasmus Højlund to succeed. I want Manchester United to be better. I said this in the last video. The Premier League is better when Manchester United is competitive. I then want City to go out and beat them. But I'd rather be beating a good Manchester United team than the dumpster fire they've been all year. So when they go out and beat a good West Ham team 3-0 over the weekend, and that was one of their better performances, if not their best performance of the season under Erik ten Hag. They went out, they had offense, 3-0, defense was solid. It was just a good all-around performance, and it was led at the top by Rasmus Højlund, who appears to have started to gain a foothold on the starting striker position. That's been a bit of a revolving door. He's had his opportunities, but he hasn't exactly taken the bull by the horns to start the season. And so there's been a lot of options there. Marcus Rashford's played out of position a little bit in the center. There's not been a stability there, and it looks like Højlund may be taking hold of it. He's scored in 4 straight games. 3 of them were Premier League games. There was an FA Cup match in there. Now we gotta have a little perspective. He still has only 4 Premier League goals on the season. That's 1 less than he has in the Champions League, where he's actually had 5 in the group stages. He played quite well there against Galatasaray and his former Copenhagen team, and he had one against Bayern. But 4 straight games of scoring and finding the net means 2 things. It means he's starting to gain his footing, and it means he's starting to get some service. But there's been this negativity surrounding Højlund because he didn't immediately come in and have success. And I'm here to tell you one thing that I want to make very clear. If you are disappointed by Rasmus Højlund, you are the problem, not him. Manchester United gets some of the blame for the €74 million price tag that they put on a 20-year-old that only had individual seasons of experience in Denmark, Austria, and Italy on his developmental resume. Erik ten Hag gets some blame too for the disjointed management that has seen their entire offense struggle this season. But the real problem here were the expectations that were put on Højlund, who never should have been expected to come in and dominate the Premier League immediately. Very few players are Erling Haaland, who scored 22 goals in his final Bundesliga season before jumping to Man City, and he was 22 with 5 German seasons under his belt. Højlund had 9 goals at Atalanta last year at 19, and then gets thrown in the deep end of the most strenuous media spotlight in the world, and we thought this was going to go well? The adjustment period for Højlund should have been expected, and now with 24 games under his belt, we're starting to see what he can do. But before we start writing off the next young, expensive star, we need to remember that unfair expectations can ruin even the best players. And that adjustment needs to come from the media and from the fans. It's not Højlund that came in and said, I'm going to score 50 goals. If he did, I missed it. But we just expect these guys to come in and hit the ground running and score a ton of goals, and it's not fair to them. And part of that's the price tag. You look at 74 million euros, and you do expect some immediate impact, but it's not Rasmus Højlund's fault that they paid 74 million euros for him. He didn't ask for that. Atalanta cashed in on a good season, and he's young and full of potential, but potential does not mean immediate impact, and that's the part that we seem to mix up. You do pay for potential, right? Why did Rasmus Højlund cost 74 million when James Maddison cost, I think it was like 40 million euros? And obviously they're not exactly equated players, but who would make a better impact right now? It's very clear. Maddison's having a great season at Tottenham. But you're paying for the potential. You're paying for what you think Rasmus Højlund can become, not what he is now. And then you immediately put him in the starting lineup, and no one comes out and says, hey, we're going to be patient with this guy. Do not expect a ton of goals yet. He's got to get his feet wet. He's got to learn. He shouldn't even be in the lineup doing that. You'd like to have him, get spelled by Anthony Martial and have Rashford hold his hand a little bit and, ease him in. But they didn't have that luxury because they didn't have any goal scorers, and they couldn't score at all during the start of the season. So he gets thrown in the deep end, and then, then the fans are the problem here. And it's not unique to Manchester United fans. This is across the board. The fans start flipping out because they spent all this money and they still can't score. And it's, there's another waste of money. There's another bad signing. No, your expectations are wrong. You are the problem. And the fans are fueled by the media. And Manchester United, this is where Manchester United is unique, because the media is full of former Manchester United players. Because of the glory days they had 20 years ago, 75% of the pundits out there and the media are former United players. And they, the problem with former players as pundits is, and we're going to get this again, Jamie Carragher, the problem with former players as pundits is they have unrealistic memories of what happened and how it was in their day, right? They misremember the nostalgic days of when they played. And, he should come in and just start scoring. And, we didn't used to do this in my day. No, you're wrong. You're just flat out wrong. It's not how anything went. And so at Manchester United, that spotlight is worse than anywhere else because the English media is so dominated by former Man United players. And so these expectations, that plus the price tag, the old Manchester United tax that they pay, puts these unrealistic expectations on a player. And it's not just United. We've seen this with Chelsea as well. Chelsea's not having a good season. And they've paid a lot of money for a lot of good young players, Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez and Romeo Lavia and Cole Palmer and, pick your list. It goes on. And there's been varying levels of success. Palmer's having a nice season. But a guy like Caicedo is a great example. $100 million or pounds or euros, I forget what it was, but, massive contract or transfer fee. And you expect him to come in and hit the ground running. And he at least had played very well at the Premier League level. So we knew it could be done. But you've still got a 20-year-old who was very raw out there. And for all of his exploits at Brighton, he was raw. He was getting by on just pure talent in a lot of ways, and aggression and assertiveness, particularly with his going after the ball on 50-50 plays and things like that. And you just can't expect that to always continue. And eventually he has to, you're paying for projection. You're paying for potential. And then on top of it, he's got to come in. Now he's got that price tag on his head, so there are expectations. And he's got to learn a new coach and a new system. And then there were some injury things and some other obstacles in the way. But you can't expect him to just slot right in and be every bit the player he ever was. The younger the player, the tougher that is to do. A guy like Declan Rice was able to do it at Arsenal because he's a much more established player. These young guys, Caicedo, yes, he had a great season last year, but he did not have years of experience the way Declan Rice did. Jude Bellingham at Real Madrid is probably the exception to the rule, but not everybody's Jude Bellingham, which is why not everybody should have a $100 million price tag on their head. Chelsea has done this. They've brought in so many young players, and then they expect them to just immediately succeed. We should have expected Chelsea to struggle this season. Now, maybe being down in, I think they're 12th in the table right now, maybe that's a little more struggle than we would have expected, and you can turn and look at Pochettino and ask yourself if he's part of the problem and if they are underachieving even by realistic expectations. But to look at this team with all these young players and all these new players coming together, and then a new coach, and all learning a new system, and to have thought that was going to result in winning the league, or even being top 4, seems like a stretch. Those expectations were unrealistic. And what comes from unrealistic expectations? Rash decisions. And that's what we may be seeing in Chelsea. Reports came out over the weekend. There were some reports coming out that not only are Chelsea interested in Xabi Alonso from Bayer Leverkusen, but they want him now. They want him now, and they will fire Pochettino to get him. That's their guy. That's what they want. And it comes from Bowley and his team. It's a little unclear who's driving this ship, but it is being reported that they want Xabi Alonso, and they want him now. Oh, gosh, Chelsea never changed. There are just so many problems with this, starting with, first of all, you spent a lot of money on Pochettino. One of your issues has been the turnover in managers, from Potter to Tuchel, Potter, Lampard. I'm not even going to go in order. There's too many to go over. But you got to give somebody a full season, don't you? Like I said, Pochettino has probably underachieved a little with this team, but what are you doing now? You're not really in the relegation battle, and you're not going to get back in a European spot, so what are we trying to achieve here? So there's not really anything to save. That's where the desperation for firing managers tends to come from, and I just don't see that being a driver here. So the driver really is that they want this guy. They want Xabi Alonso, and I guess the impetus is partly because he's going to be a candidate for the Liverpool job, and so if they can snag him before that happens, that's a major coup for them, rather than have to face the guy for potentially the next decade. So I get that, but here's what they need to ask themselves. First of all, if you're Xabi Alonso, why would you want to leave Bayer Leverkusen right now? Right? Eventually, he may want to go on to a bigger job, although personally, selfishly, I'd rather see him establish Bayer Leverkusen as one of the dominant teams in Germany and give Bayern a run for their money year after year, right? And establish themselves as another German powerhouse, because it can be done in Germany. It just hasn't been. So I'd selfishly love to see him stay. Of course, they'd have to keep a lot of their players too, Florian Wirtz and Frimpong and a lot of these other young players that are probably going to leave too. So, if one leaves, they all leave. But really, in the middle of the season, you got a chance to win the Bundesliga. Nobody outside of Bayern has done that in a decade. You got a chance to be that guy. And you're going to leave mid-season? I don't buy it. I'm not putting this on Xabi Alonso. There's no rumors that he wants to leave. But Chelsea really think he's going to? What would you have to do to entice him to do that? And more importantly, would you want a coach who'd be willing to do that? That's the bigger question for me. No matter what I could throw at Xabi Alonso to get him to leave Leverkusen for Chelsea, it would immediately make me say, wait, you took the offer? Then you're not the guy I thought you were, right? If Xabi Alonso leaves the project he's in the middle of that is going as well as it could possibly be expected to go for another project, which, by the way, is going as poorly as you could have expected it to go, that makes me question what kind of leader he is. You want to leave in the postseason or in the summer? Fine, that happens. But you're going to ditch a campaign mid-season where you're winning the Bundesliga to go be in 12th place in the Premier League with a team that's going to fire you in 6 months if you don't immediately win? I don't think so. And that's what Chelsea doesn't realize about itself is Chelsea still the destination job they think they are? I mean, sort of, right? You as a manager, you want to go to a club that's going to fund you properly and give you the players you need to succeed, right? That's the goal. Every manager wants to go someplace that they can succeed. They're not going to go someplace where they have no chance unless they're running out of options at higher levels. So in that regard, sure, but you've got to believe, one, that Chelsea is making good use of their resources. Well, recent history has told us that that's not true. Right? They're spending, but they're not spending well. And then look at their history of firing managers. The last couple of managers have lasted 27 days each. It's ridiculous how fast they fire managers. And that now extends over 2 ownership groups, right? This goes back to the Roman Abramovich days, but it's the same way with Bowley, who's just an American Roman Abramovich, right? And so is that really a place you want to go? So forget the in-season part for a second. We get to June, and Xabi Alonso says, okay, I'm willing to listen to jobs, and Liverpool's making their pitch, and Barcelona's making their pitch, and Chelsea's making their pitch. Does Chelsea really stack up? Not that well, in my opinion. Maybe over Barcelona, because Barcelona has no money, but Xabi Alonso's a Spanish guy, so that might have some pull. But that job's not more appealing than Liverpool by any stretch, which is probably why Chelsea wants to go after him now. But that doesn't mean he's going to have any interest. And I think Chelsea needs to begin to realize what they've done to themselves and where it puts them in the pecking order. Because if I'm a manager with any other options, I don't want that Chelsea job at all. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole because the expectations are out of control. The player transfer strategy is a disaster. Yeah, you're getting lots of resources, but that just comes with expectations you can't meet, and they're trigger happy on the firing, right? Pochettino was supposed to be the guy who solved that. He was the guy who was going to come in and give them some stability. Well, here we are in February, and they're looking for another manager. So I wouldn't touch that job at all if I'm a guy like Xabi Alonso or any other manager who has the potential to go get, a really top high-end job, because frankly, Chelsea is not one anymore. Speaking of not one anymore, Jamie Carragher, you are not a player anymore. Shut the hell up. The reason I'm saying this is probably something everybody has seen. After Arsenal's victory over Liverpool over the weekend, it was an exciting game. It was sort of a messy game. You had the gaffe by Alisson. You had red cards. Klopp's not happy with the refs. All sorts of drama. It's Premier League at its finest, right? 3-1 victory. Arsenal players are understandably pumped up. They're excited. And so what does Martin Odegaard do? He goes and gets the camera from the longtime Arsenal cameraman who's been featured on some documentaries, and he's basically a part of the team. And he grabs the camera. He starts taking pictures of the cameraman with the fans. That's great. That is awesome. Good for him. Good for them for enjoying it. Good for any athlete who wants to go out there and enjoy their victory and not rub it in the face. If he went over to the Liverpool bench and grabbed his crotch, I'd have a problem with it. Or went and flipped off the entire Liverpool section of fans. But you want to go celebrate with your teammates, your fans, your support staff, and show them some love after a great victory? I think this is incredible. So what happens? The punditry guys come around and say, that's not how we would have done it in our day. You get a big victory, you go back in the locker room. Shut the hell up, Jamie Carragher. Shut the hell up. You want to go back in the locker room and not have any fun or go have it behind closed doors, that's your prerogative. I got no problem with this. I got a much bigger problem with pundits who think that things didn't happen back in their day than I do players celebrating in a non-offensive way. Go celebrate. You want to show off a support staff guy a little bit? That's awesome. That probably made that guy's week, right? Or month or year. Good for you, Martin Odegaard. Shut the hell up, Jamie Carragher. I'm so tired of these pundits who think they know better than everybody else because they played, and it wasn't like that in their day. And the British media, Sky Sports, you are full of all these guys, and they are just obnoxious. And it's not punditry. It's not analysis. It's just complaining. It's just old man yelling at cloud. And that's what Jamie Carragher is here. And I got no tolerance for it. And that's actually why I started this channel. Because, I got into the sport. And I love the sport and I'm addicted immediately. And God, the coverage of it is just so painful. It's so brutal. And guys like Carragher, who's actually entertaining on the CBS stuff with Micah Richards, and they got a good dynamic, and he's fun to watch. But whenever these guys go venture down the old man yells at cloud, road because things were better in their day and they didn't do this sort of stuff, and this is inappropriate. Get the hell out of here. Nobody wants to hear you. It's not about you. And Arsenal, go enjoy it. You got yourselves right back in a title race. And that's what I'm excited about now is we have a legitimate 3-team title race with Liverpool, Arsenal, and Manchester City. And that's all I want. Obviously, I'm rooting for City. I try to keep that out of my analysis, but I want to win a competitive league, right? We talked about PSG in Ligue 1. winning 6 out of 7 by dozens of points every year. Last year was a 1-point win for PSG, but they've had some 10, 12-point wins over the years. It's not really that fun. Manchester City has had to work for theirs the past couple of years. They came back from way down in the table last year. It looks like they're going to be doing it this year. If they win, it's going to be from coming back from 4th place around Christmas time. And yeah, you want competitive leagues. Again, I want Manchester United to be good and get their ship right. So that way when Man City beats them, it feels better. It's more exciting. I want Liverpool to play well and stay in it. I want Arsenal to play well and stay in it. Then obviously, where my supporting interests are in rooting for the result, and that's fine. But yeah, competition is great, and this looks like it is going to be a legitimate 3-horse race all the way down to the wire, and that's going to be some fantastic football to watch. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm just not going to listen to guys like Jamie Carragher who tell you can't get excited about things, because that's what we're all about. That's what we're all about here at Pints and Punditry, is getting excited about the game and enjoying it and then talking about it. So I definitely want to get your thoughts on things. Follow us on Twitter, Pitchside Pub. Tell me where I'm wrong. I don't care. You can disagree with me. Do it respectfully, but let's have a discussion. Get in the comments section if you're watching this on YouTube. We're putting them up every Monday and Thursday. And then, of course, if you're listening on Spotify, you can find us in a lot of other places. But I thank you for listening along. That will do it for episode 5 of La Pausa here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub.